let's make eggless chocolate macarons. So to make your chocolate macarons, I know sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, and I'm going to show you some tips today of how you can be successful with your chocolate macarons. Now, the first thing being, because these are going to be a chocolate shell, we do need to use cocoa powder, but we need to take note of the type of cocoa powder that we're using. So traditionally, cocoa powder, like a Dutch cocoa powder or a lot of these ones that you would find in a supermarket, will be a high-fat cocoa powder. And what we're looking for is a defatted cocoa powder. You're going to have a much higher chance of success making these macarons with a defatted cocoa powder. So that's what I am using today. I have mise en place all of my ingredients, prepared my almond meal, and now we are ready to get started. So the first thing, as always, when making your macarons, we are going to clean our equipment. So we want to take some kitchen towel, a little bit of vinegar, and go around all of the equipment that we're going to be using to whip our vegan egg white replacement. So I'm going to do this in my bowl, also on my immersion blender head. And cleaning all of our equipment with the vinegar is going to take any remnants of fat that may have been left on our equipment, and this can sometimes inhibit the foaming ability of our vegan egg white. So once that's all done, I like to go over everything just with a damp cloth, just to now remove the vinegar because it's already done its job. So to prepare your vegan egg white replacement, we are using our Gerbe vegan egg white replacement, the potato protein blend. And what I'm going to do is incorporate a spoonful of the sugar that we're using to create the meringue today into the Gerbe powder. And we're just going to mix this together. This is going to help disperse the powders. Now we're going to take this and pop it into our water measurement. And using our immersion blender, blend everything together. Now transfer your vegan egg white replacement into your bowl. So now we're going to start beating our egg white replacement for a few minutes until it starts getting foamy. And we want to do this over a low to medium speed. So we've been beating our mixture for a couple of minutes, and now we're going to add a third of our remaining sugar. Now we want to continue beating this on a medium speed until we get soft peaks. Now we're at this soft peak stage, we're going to continually add our remaining sugar a little at a time and continue beating until we get stiff peaks. And again, still maintaining a medium speed. We don't want to go to the highest speed. We can increase a little bit at this stage, but we just don't want to do the maximum speed. Once you have a nice stiff meringue, you want to check to see whether you can feel any of that graininess of the sugar. I can still feel a little bit of it there, so I'm going to continue beating until it's dissolved. Now that we have beautiful stiff meringue, we're going to add a little bit of food coloring. Now this is just going to bring out the beautiful color of the cocoa powder. So I'm adding a little touch of red food coloring. You don't need much, just a little bit to bring out that color. Now we want to take our cocoa powder, confectioner's sugar, and almond meal and sift it all into a large bowl. Now we're ready to do our macaronage. We're going to start incorporating our almond meal, confectioner's sugar, and cocoa powder into the meringue that we just created. So I'm going to put half of my dry mixture in here, And we're just going to start folding everything through until it's just incorporated. And now add your remaining dry ingredients. And again, fold through. Now we can start deflating our dough or our macaronage, and so how we're going to do that is press that batter against the side of our bowl, and then we're going to scrape that up against the side of the bowl and then scrape it up. You can also press down and kind of swirl from side to side, deflating some of those air bubbles. And we continue to do this until we get the correct texture, and the correct texture that we're looking for, it should sort of run down like lava and you should be able to create a figure 8. It's still a little bit sticky, so we're going to do a little more. Let's take a look now. A little more. Okay, so now it's starting to run down the spoon, see, and I'm able to do a figure 8. So we can transfer this into a piping bag with a 5mm tip nozzle. And we'll start off with about half of our batter in our piping bag. And just cover the rest up with a tea towel just while you are piping. Then you want to take yourself a guide. You can make this yourself with baking paper and just draw on the circles using the end side of your nozzle tip. But I've got this silicone one, so I'm going to use that today. And then with your baking tray, just make sure that you have a sheet of baking paper that's going to fit the tray. Now we're just going to put a little bit of our batter down on each corner of our guide, just to stick down our paper. And then with piping your macarons, we want to make sure we have a nice taut bag, so just twist the end so you've got a good grip. And on a 90-degree angle, I like to use my right hand to press and my left hand as a guide. 90-degree angle, we're going to pop it in the center of our circle and squeeze until we almost get to the end, stop and then flick. And then you can continue doing that. And keep kind of twisting your bag too, just to make sure that you've got a nice taut grip. And once you've piped a full paper, we're going to transfer this onto our baking sheet. Just pop a little bit of your batter in each corner so it sticks. And then we're going to slide this over. And we can use some of these dog clips to help secure the paper so it doesn't move in the oven. And now we're going to tap the base and to bring any air bubbles to the surface. If you have any air bubbles that have come to the surface, you can grab yourself a toothpick and just pop those out. And now we just want to set this tray aside until our macarons develop a skin on top, so it's dry to the touch. And so I'm going to work on piping my next tray now while these dry. So now we're going to set these aside so they can develop their skin on top before baking. Or if you want to speed the process up, you can put it in your oven at 35 degrees Celsius or a dehydrator until they develop a nice skin on top. In a preheated oven at 135 degrees, pop your macarons into the oven and we're going to cook them for 5 minutes to develop their feet. Once you've developed your feet, just open the oven door, just a crack. If you are using a home oven, you can put something in between just to keep it open slightly. We're going to allow this to cool down for 5 minutes before we continue baking. Once your 5 minutes is up, we can close the door of our oven and we're going to set the temperature to 100 degrees Celsius and cook for about 15 to 18 minutes for the first bake. Once your time is up, you want to check your macarons to see whether they're starting to lift off from the paper. If you still see them stuck just a little bit in the center, that's fine, we can take them out. So I'm going to check these now and see whether they're ready to remove from the oven. So see, they're still kind of sticking a little bit, so I'm going to pop these in for another 5 minutes and then check them again. Let's take another look at our macarons. So see how they're still stuck a little bit in the center. I think maybe 2 more minutes and then they'll be ready to come out. Now your macarons are ready. Just take them out of the oven and pop them on a cooling rack and we'll let those cool down for about 15 minutes. Now that your macarons have cooled down on their trays, you can remove them from the trays. And I like to go grab a baking sheet or something that can fit into my freezer. And I'm just going to put my macarons on top. And you can stack them. We're going to pop these into the freezer for about 30 minutes or until they're really nice and cold, and it will allow them to lift off the sheets of paper very easily. So into the freezer. So now we have our chocolate macarons that we're going to fill. So I've just filled my piping bag up with the filling that I want to use with my ganache. It's a little bit cold in my kitchen, so I'm just giving it a little bit of a massage just so it softens up a little bit. Now you want to take out your macarons and match up the shells. And it looks like I already did this before when I packed them in my freezer in this container. So I'm just going to take these out. Okay, so now that we have all of our macaron shells all laid out, we can start filling them with our filling. So once you've got your filling in, then you can put your top on and continue with the rest. Okay, so once that's all done, I like to add just a little bit of sea salt, and I use this flaky salt, just a tiny bit onto each one. And we can now pop the lids on. have a nice filling to macaron shell ratio. Nice and generous with our ganache. Now I'm just putting some of my macarons here onto some baking paper because I want to put a little bit of chocolate on the top as a garnish. So I just want to make sure that they're spaced out. Now I've just taken some baking paper and I've turned it into a triangle. Now on the longest edge, I'm just going to, in half, we're going to turn that around and kind of form this into a nice cone. And we're just twisting it around. So matching it up. And then just tucking it inside. And I've got some tempered chocolate here, which has got a bit cool. Just heat that up to our working temperature. Okay. And we just want to close that up. Fold over the sides and we can just roll this up nice and tight. And we just want to cut the end off as much as we want for our chocolate to come out. Maybe a little more. Look at this. Oh yeah, I'm happy with that. All right, so now we can start putting it onto our macarons. And I'm just doing like a little bit over the top like so. Now we can put these onto a tray. I'm just going to line it with some baking paper. Just lift these off, and if there's any excess chocolate, you can just take that off. It's already set. Now we want to cover our macarons up well. So you can either put them in a container or, like me, just on a tray. But we want to ensure that no air is going to get into them, and make sure that you cover them when all the chocolate is set if you decide to do this garnish on top. So I'm just going over with some cling wrap, and these are going to go into the refrigerator overnight for a minimum of 24 hours, and that's going to allow all of those flavors to absorb into the shell and for you to have this magnificent chocolatey macaron. So I'm going to pop these into the fridge now, and then tomorrow we have our macarons all ready to eat.